This is the Emax Tinyhawk 3, and I'm pretty sure this is the easiest way to get into FPV. I'm going to tell you all about this drone, the kit that comes with it, and how you can make this better right out of the box. Stay tuned. First, let's talk about what you get in this kit, right? It's a nice little kit, and you do get a solid carrying case. Everything fits in here really well, and there's even straps to hold it in place. The quad itself goes right in here, strap it down, and it stays in there. Nice. We get an extra set of props. You're gonna want those, although because of the way that it's built, I find that the props don't fall off of this drone nearly as much as some of the others. We got a couple of antennas here, and they're going to go on my set of goggles. Now, I do really like these goggles, not because of the way they fit on my face or the comfort level, but because they're convertible, right? They're convertible in a couple of different ways. They're adjustable in that you can pull this little thing out here, right? So if you need them to telescope out, you can. I'm struggling with it a little bit here. And then they kind of hold in place. I had to pull these out for them to work on my face. You kind of squeeze in the sides and push it back. But what I really like is this screen here comes off. Now eventually you'll likely upgrade the goggles, but it's nice to have this screen. I use a screen all the time for drones. Even has a thread on the bottom so you can attach this to the controller. So if you have glasses and they just don't fit inside the goggles, or maybe you just get a little nauseous flying with these goggles on your face, some people do, you really kind of want a screen, now you got one. You can scan for your channel, but I don't suggest you do that. I suggest you either change with the band or the channel button. Really you want to be on race band, probably 1 or 8. I find race band 8, and I do that because it's above the Wi-Fi in my house, and I find that that's the best way to do that. So I'll show you how you do that, and you got to change the quad here. I'll do that a little bit later. It does have a spot for a micro SD card so you can record your flight. That's pretty awesome, just to push on this button marked R. So goggles, absolutely a bonus for this thing. You got a charger here. You can charge 1 or 2 S batteries, high volt or standard LiPo. You charge them to high volt, you get a little bit more juice, a little bit more flight time, but your batteries will actually wear out a little bit quicker, so you can make that call. To charge fastest, plug this into a 2 amp source and you'll be good to go. We also have in here, looks like a little Allen wrench. We got some bits and pieces in order to mount it on the controller. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Some screws, the world's smallest screwdriver, some extra rubber bands, micro USB cable, some warnings and disclaimers, some Emax stickers, and there's no manual, but you do get this QR code with a full manual on there. So scan the QR code, take a look at the manual, and you'll be good to go. I'm gonna slide that back in there because I want to keep it. Let's take a look at the remote. Now this remote is an absolute upgrade over the last one that you got in the Emax kits. This is actually better than the light rated that you get in some of the beta FPV kits. It just is solid. It's a good remote. Now it's not like pro grade or anything like that, but it's a good beginner remote, and you can use this with other drones. You can bind other quads to this as long as they're FR Sky D8, and I believe you just hold these 2 buttons here in the center to put it into binding mode. It says all that in the manual. You'll definitely want to check that out. Now the first thing you want to do is make sure you label these switches. This here is your arm switch. This is aux 1, up is off, down spins the motors. Over here we have aux 2. This is your mode switch. All the way up is beginner mode, also known as angle mode. The drone will self-level. If you move it to the middle switch, it will still self-level. However, you can do flips and rolls if you really push the sticks. And all the way down is full acro mode. You have full control of the drone. It is not going to self-level. And I would avoid that until you figure it out. Before you get into acro mode, you just need to put in some time in the sim, and you can do that with this remote. I've done it. It's awesome. It works, and that's an absolute bonus. All right, on the top of the remote here, we've got two more switches. These are 2-position switches. This is aux3. This is your flip or your turtle mode button. In order to enact turtle mode, all right, so you've crashed, your drone is upside down. What you're gonna do is you're going to disarm, then you're going to engage turtle mode, then you're going to arm your drone, then you're gonna flip your drone. A lot of times you're working this one direction here. When it flips over, right, disengage your flip mode, disarm, rearm, and then take off. And your last button here is your beeper button. You flip that down, your quad will beep at you so you can find it. Now let's talk about the drone itself. Some definite improvements. This is all new design. This is more of a straight X design. If we look at some of the older drones, I got some here. This is the Tinyhawk 2, missing a propeller, but you can see it's not a true X. It's a little bit longer up and down. Same thing with the Tinyhawk X. It's a little bit longer up and down, right? So it's not a true even spacing of the propellers. I think that helps make this just a tiny bit more stable, and that's good for a beginner. The camera here is adjustable. You're gonna need a tiny little Allen wrench to kind of get the angle where you want it. You know, basically, the more you angle this camera up, the faster you're gonna fly. It just kind of, you kind of fly so that this is angled straight, right? So if you want to fly slow, make sure you have it just kind of a small pitch when you start flying, and then you can kind of change that as you want to fly more aggressively. Now, a couple of things that are really nice about this, we've got 4 screw holes here. This canopy comes off, and you can get access to the components inside. That's actually really nice. If you have to change something, the motors are plugged, and they're plugged in right here. These motors are brushless motors, which are much better than brush motors. 0802 50,000 kV, which is just kind of really nice. It's maybe a tiny bit under power, but great for a beginner. We've got a PH2 connector here, and they put a capacitor on here. Usually that helps with video noise. I don't know that it's helping me, but that's what it's for. Now you see it does come with one 450 milliamp hour battery, and it is rated as a high voltage battery, so you can charge this up to 4.35 volts per cell. The first thing you want to do is get more batteries. You know, one battery isn't enough. I've got tons of these things laying around. You don't have to buy Emax batteries. You can buy pretty much anything with a PH 2.0 connector. Some people will say, hey, you want to change the connector. Don't do that, right? This will work just fine, especially as you're getting going, right? Maybe you want to upgrade to, you know, a G&B connector, or maybe a BT 2.0, but for now, this one just fine. Just get some extra batteries, 450 milliamp hours up to maybe 600 milliamp hours, 650, right? Something that looks like this. A bigger battery will give you a little bit more flight time, but you know, it'll be a little bit heavier, so it won't be quite as maneuverable. The camera on here is nice. It's the Runcam Nano 4. Good picture. We do have a switchable VTX. The video transmitter starts at 25 milliwatts, and it's actually locked. Now, one of the first things you're gonna want to do is unlock the VTX, then change your channel. I suggest race band 8, and bump up the VTX to 200 milliwatts. It's just gonna allow you to fly further and get a stronger video signal. So I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Now, if you want to install the screen on top of the remote, you take this little piece, slide it in the top, grab this little mount here, slide that on top there, grab this little screw and the nut, place the nut inside here, and thread it in. Once you have that on there, you're gonna grab the screen, twist it on, get it to where it's comfortable, then twist this up. Actually, let's twist it a couple more times so it kind of gets, there we go, now it's nice and snug. This is how I would fly this quad, right? And you can kind of adjust the angle so it works for you, but this is actually super nice that you can do that with this drone, right? Some people don't like goggles. This is a win. All right, I'm gonna power everything on. I turn the screen on first, power up the remote, hold that button there in the center. Grab the drone, put a battery on, connect the battery. This is looking for race band 4, so you can see I've got a lot of fuzz. So what do? Right, I could hit the automatic search. Don't do that. I already know that it's on race band 8, and I'll show you how to check that in just a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the side. I'm going to click the channel button. So now we're on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Boom. Now I can see, right? Beautiful. Look at that. Great. I got a picture. So that's awesome. So if you need to change the channel, work these buttons on the side. But the beauty of it isn't that. Now the first thing you need to know is how to use smart audio. This is what you're going to want to do. All right, I'm going to record this. So I'll click the record button. I'm going to take my remote here and I'm going to go up with this one, left with this one, and I get a menu, right? I can change all sorts of things in here. I'm gonna go to my features, right? By working the right joystick, click right, go to VTX, click right, and now I can change my channel or my band. The band you're gonna probably want is race band, almost always. It starts on race band. I'm gonna change my channels here, right? I can go to 1. Some people like flying on 1 because they say it's the most powerful band. It may be. I like to fly on 8 because it's above my Wi-Fi connection, right? You can pick the channel that suits you. Now over here, power, it starts on 25 milliwatts. So it's only putting out 25 milliwatts of power. I want it to output 200 milliwatts of power so that I can see this thing further. That's the first thing you're going to want to do. And you're going to click set, confirm, yes, right? I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go save and exit. Okay, so I can see here on the screen, it tells me I'm on race band 8 and I'm at 200 milliwatts of power. There's a lot of important things here on the screen. I'm flying currently in air mode, right? If I flip it all the way up, it says angle, middle it says horizon. Let's be in angle mode for the Tinyhawk 3. You can change that. In the upper right hand corner of my RSSI, that's basically my signal strength. Right now it's at 80, that's pretty strong, and flight time, 0 minutes, I haven't taken off yet, and my battery's at 4.2 volts. You're gonna wanna stop flying when you get to about 3.2, somewhere between 3 and 3.2 volts. It'll say battery low, that's when you're gonna bring it in. The battery should come back up to 3.5 volts, but do not fly this thing until the battery is 100% dead. That is going to kill your batteries. It's bad for your batteries. Okay, so this is something you're gonna want to do. In the back here is a little button, and this is how you lock or unlock your VTX. It comes locked very first time you get the drone, so you hold this button down, and when you hold that button down and plug in the battery, if you can get another set of hands, it makes this a lot easier. I'm just gonna kind of get it in place, hold that down, all right, and I can see that it's flashing. That means I did something. I actually locked it, so I'm gonna unlock it. Same process, right? Get it kind of close, hold the button, or grab a friend. All right, now I'm gonna show you what you need to know in Betaflight. Now you don't have to get into Betaflight. It's a program, free program that allows you to really customize this thing. And I'll show you what you wanna do before you fly, if you can. If this intimidates you, don't worry about it. Just go out and fly. Okay, so I'm gonna fly the Tinyhawk around the house just a little bit using some of the stock settings. I haven't tweaked anything yet. I have since this video. You know, one thing I do suggest you do, and I'll walk you through, is turning off air mode, because in angle mode, when you bump into things in air mode, it kind of makes the drone just act a little bit goofy. So that's one thing that I recommend, and I'll walk you through that. Now, I've been flying a while. I am not going to say I'm a good pilot by any stretch of the imagination, but I put in a lot of time in a simulator, and the simulator is just going to help you hone those skills. I did a video with my son where I taught him how to fly by spending 10 minutes a day in the simulator for a month, and at the end, he was able to fly. And we did it via acro, or using acro mode, so he's able to do the flips and the rolls and a lot of the fun stuff. Now you can kind of see I'm going up from the basement of my house to the 3rd level, and you know, the picture's not perfect. It kind of breaks up, and that's to be expected pretty much with any analog quad, especially a little tiny whoop. Now I did change this. I take it back. I did change one thing. I'm flying on race band 8 because I think it gets a little bit better reception in my home because it's above my Wi-Fi, and I am on 200 milliwatts, so this is at the highest output power. When you buy this drone straight from the factory, you start on race band 4, and you start at 25 milliwatts, and you aren't going to get the penetration. You're probably not going to be able to get all the way to a third level from a basement if you're on 25 milliwatts. And again, I'll walk you through how to do that, so just kind of take note. You know, there are some other useful things you can see on the screen, and I'll walk you through that later, but the upper left-hand corner tells you what mode you're in. I'm in angle mode. There's horizon mode, and there's acro mode. Horizon mode, you can do flips and rolls, and it'll still self-level. You know, the rates on this drone are really slow, so I don't recommend you do that. Acro mode, same thing. Not super great in terms of acro, but you can fly acro, and it's kind of fun. Upper right-hand corner is your telemetry, and then you have other useful information on the bottom. Now, I got 2 minutes on this flight. You could definitely get about 5 minutes on a full battery if you want to. So it's something to think about. This thing does pack a little bit of punch if you need it to. Now we're going to dive into Betaflight, and Betaflight is a software that helps you kind of customize the drone here. Now this could be fairly intimidating if you're not, you know, super good with software, but I'm going to walk you through some of the things I recommend you do. You do not have to do these things, but these are some things you might want to try. So step 1 is download Betaflight, and I'll leave a link in the description down below so you have a link to the Betaflight configurator. It's a free program, and it'll help you with not just this quad, but most FPV drones. Okay, so grab a drone, grab a micro USB. You can see the micro USB cable connector here in the back. Go ahead and plug it in. It'll light up. You hear a little ding ding on your computer, and then we're good to go. Now, the first tab, the setup tab, you should see a representation of your drone, and as you move it, it should move on your screen. All right, let's move down through the things, the tabs on the left. We've got ports, don't need to worry about that. We can see we have smart audio here. Configuration. All right, let's take a look at the configuration. Right here, personalization, right? You can see Tinyhawk 3 was on the screen before. If I wanted to say something else, I just type that in here. Let's make it half chrome. So now I've got my call sign. It'll say half chrome when I'm flying, which is kind of cool. All right, some other things down here. I'm actually going to turn off air mode, right? I don't want it permanently on because sometimes when I bump into things, it kind of gets a little bit wonky. Sometimes it gets sucked into walls and things like that. I do want air mode on when I'm in acro mode, but not necessarily for angle or horizon. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. I'm going to click save and reboot. I'm going to connect it again. All right. Power and battery, I'm not going to worry about that. Presets, not worrying about that. PID tuning. Now, this is where you can customize how the drone flies, and I don't suggest you do a whole lot here. Something I'm going to look at is this angle strength, right? It's at 50, and that is how fast it kind of snaps back to level. And I think I want it a little bit higher so it snaps back just a little bit quicker. And I don't suggest you do this as a beginner, but as you kind of learn to fly and you want it to be a little bit more responsive, you may want to tweak that. I've sometimes flown with that angle strength close to 100. I'm just going to slowly tweak it from 50 to 75 and see how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. The receiver tab is what you'll check to make sure that everything in the controller is working properly. I'm not going to mess with that here. Modes. Now, this is something that you're going to do, something I'm going to do. I'm not a big fan of horizon mode, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And it's just basically angle mode. But if you want to learn how to fly acro mode, I suggest you enable something called Acro Trainer. So down here somewhere is the Acro Trainer. Click add range. I want to put that in the same spot as horizon mode. Now that is on aux 2. So go ahead and change this to aux 2. And then horizon mode will be replaced with Acro Trainer. So if you're learning acro, it just doesn't allow you to do all the flips and rolls, so it kind of limits the angle. It's a nice little touch. I also want to add air mode. Remember, we turned air mode off. Again, I don't want air mode all the way off. I just want it on when I'm in acro And you know what, how about an acro trainer? So now air mode will be on aux 2. So when I flip into acro or acro trainer, it's on, but when it's in angle mode, it's off, right? So what does all that mean? If we look up here, angle mode is activated on aux 2, and air mode is not activated in that spot with aux 2. It's a little complicated, but just know that that's what I'm doing here. I don't think I want to change anything else, and I think that's just going to help make my drone a little bit more responsive. You just turned off air mode, that's going to be okay. You don't necessarily need it if you're not flying acro. So we'll click save, and one more thing I want to do, I'm going to go into the OSD. Now the OSD is the on-screen display. It'll show you the things that you're asking for, right? So you can see here, it now says half chrome instead of Tinyhawk 3. It'll give me my battery voltage, how long I've been flying, my RSSI or my signal strength, what mode I'm in, and my channel and power. One thing I suggest as a beginner you add is crosshairs. I think crosshairs help line up your flight patterns just a little bit easier, so go ahead and turn those on. You might find that helpful. Right? There's a handful of other things you can kind of look at and decide whether or not you want them on there. That's up to you. Go ahead and click save, and we're good to go. That's all I would recommend you look at in Betaflight right now. If you fly outside, I take it back. If you're going to fly this thing outside, there is one more thing I'd suggest you do. Back in the configuration tab, the arming angle is set currently to 60. I'm going to change that to 180. That just means I can arm the drone if it's upside down. That's not really something you need to do, but if you're stuck in a tree, you can kind of arm it and shake the motors, and sometimes that'll get it loose. I also, you know what, I'm going to turn on RX Lost, so it'll beep if it gets disconnected from the remote, and then it'll help me find it, right? So if my battery on the remote died and I couldn't find this thing to activate the beeper switch, it'll just start beeping at me. So I'm going to save and reboot, and that is an improved little Tinyhawk. That's what I recommend you do, so check it out. So yeah, this is a great beginner drone. I love the kit, I love the case, I love that everything comes with it, and you're going to continue to use some of these components. Sure, you might outgrow the goggles, but you can use the screen. You may outgrow the remote controller, but then you can find what you really like and go with that. Personally, really like this new Radiomaster Zorro. It's a solid gamepad style remote. This thing starts at $80. It's either $80 or $100 depending on which version you get, but this is a good upgrade if you're thinking about upgrading. The goggles I use are these Sky Zones. These are about $300, so it's like the whole price of the kit. But you get this low profile design, and they're just really pretty darn good. Something you may want to invest in before you invest in goggles is to get a pair of good antennas. I'll leave a link in the description down below if you want to upgrade antennas. These Fox Ear Lollipops are pretty solid. If there are any sneakerheads watching, maybe you noticed my shirt, Snkrfest Chicago. It's an event that's happening actually in Romeoville this Saturday. So if you're watching later, you probably missed it. But it's actually put on by a high school student. He does a great job. He's actually one of my students. I can't take credit for the fest, but if you're into sneakers, definitely something you're going to want to check out. It's in Romeoville. Again, I'll leave a description down below if you want to check that out. Cool event if you're a shoe guy. Anyway, hopefully this was helpful. If it was, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget about our live streams on Sunday nights where we give away free stuff. Want to see you there. Good luck, everyone, and happy flying.